Hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending upon when you are watching this video lecture. After discussing unit 1 and 2 of chapter 2, which were related to the theory of demand and the theory of consumer behavior, now let's move on to unit 3 of chapter 2, that is the theory of supply. First and foremost point here we should understand and identify is the demand is a buy side concept, means from the point of view of the consumers, whereas supply is a sell side concept, that means from the point of view of sellers, manufacturers, producers, whatever the name we call them. So in simple word we can use the word suppliers, that can include many categories of people who sell goods or provide services in an economy. As far as this particular topic is concerned, we are supposed to understand in this topic definitely what is supply and what are the determinants of supply, means what factors will influence the supply, and also we need to look at the law of supply just like the law of demand, but this is the opposite of that. And also, just like what we observed in the theory of demand, what is the difference between movements on the supply curve, shift of the supply curve. Earlier we discussed about movements on the demand curve and shift of the demand curve. Now we need to extend it to another concept of movements on the supply curve and shift of the supply curve. The core aspects what we discussed in demand and supply will be same, but only point is these are mirror images of what demand talks about. So if we understand the theory of demand and various aspects related to demand technically, similar techniques can be applied here also. It's not going to be a completely new thing that we are going to learn here in this chapter. It will be an extension of the theory of demand only, but once again, as I said, it is the other side of the coin. So just like the coin has both the sides, heads and tails, any market economy will have both the sides, that is demand and supply. Of course, the determinants of demand, determinants of supply could be different, but when it comes to the technical aspects of law of supply, or what is the difference between movements on the supply curve and shift of the supply curve, whatever we learned earlier in the demand theory will more or less hold good, but once again only in the opposite direction. Only direction changes, but the concept is still the same. Same way, the concept of elasticity also will hold good here, but here instead of elasticity of demand we'll have to calculate elasticity of supply. But after knowing both demand and supply, we need to apply both these concepts at the same time, put together, and how these two will influence the prices of the commodities in a market economy, that we will understand also at the end of this chapter, that is unit 3 of chapter 2. Before entering into the technical aspects of it, let us just understand what does supply mean. When we talk about a market economy, which we are always talking about, that is a capitalist economy, market economy, where demand and supply will influence various decisions, and that will influence the priorities of the entire economy also. So definitely in the market economy, the two sides of the market will be demand and supply. But the supply side, what we are looking at now, is the side where there will be sellers for the products and services. Naturally, on the demand side, those were consumers. It was the buy side or demand side. Now, on the sell side or supply side, we will have the sellers for products and services. Just like the term demand refers to the quantity of a good or service that the consumers are willing and able to purchase at various prices during a given period of time. We know this definition already. What is demand? Just that can be applied to the supply also. But once again, the parties change here. Instead of consumers, we use the word producers. Producers once again don't have to be taken too literally. Ultimately, whoever is selling it to the consumer, that product has to be produced by somebody. That is the beginning point of supply naturally. Even in case of a service also, somebody has to originate that service. So when we say producers, we have to understand that includes whole lot of people, manufacturers, wholesalers, retailers, etc. Lot of people are there in the market chain, and they will be ultimately willing to sell the commodities or services to their consumers. But every time we don't have to distinguish producers, sellers, manufacturers, etc., not required. So when we say producers, we are talking about all the sell side of the market. When we say sellers, we are talking about all the sell side of the market. So don't take these words too literally. We are talking about the supply side of the market, where the term supply refers to, instead of amount, it is better to use the word quantity. Amount looks like again money. Here we are not talking about money, we are talking about the quantity of a good or service that the producers are, once again same, both willing and able. They are willing also and they are able also to what? Not buy, to offer to the market. Because they are producers, they are offering these goods and services to the market. They are willing to offer also, they are able to offer also. Naturally at various prices during a given period of time. That is a common thing, just like demand definition. So simply what does supply mean? Once again same, it is also a quantity of a good or service. Definitely yes, it is a quantitative thing that we are talking about. So it is a quantity, but quantity of a good or service which is supplied by or offered by, we can say offered by whom? By the suppliers in the market. And they are not just willing, they are willing also. There is a will and there is ability also to supply. Both are there. Of course, at a particular price or at different prices, and naturally in a particular place, and naturally during a particular time period. So those are all same things. All these things will constitute supply. So it is the quantity of the goods or services offered by the suppliers who have both the will and ability to offer those goods or services to the market at various prices in a given place during a given period of time. So if we just say the supply of cement is 10,000 tons, that statement doesn't mean anything. Why? Because supply of cement 10,000 tons where? Is it in Hyderabad, or is it in entire India, or is it in a particular district? Without that, that doesn't make sense practically. Same way, 10,000 tons for which period? Are we talking about a day? Are we talking about a month or a quarter or a year? What time period it is representing? It has to be also mentioned. So when we say supply or demand for that matter, both of them will need to definitely have these three things along with them whenever such statements are made. Of course, that does not mean we have to find those three things in every statement related to a question, but practically both of these items are expressions in quantities. Both of them refer to the will and ability, but only thing is, in case of demand, will and ability should be of consumer. In case of supply, the will and ability should be of supplier. There it was purchased by the buyers. Here the goods are offered by the suppliers at different prices during a given period of time at a particular place. That's what supply is all about. So if you observe, most of the points, the core aspects are same. Only what has changed is the side. Earlier it was the consumer side, now it is supplier side. That's all. That is the basic meaning of supply, we can say, or definition of supply, if you want to call it, we can call it. But some of the points to be identified here very carefully are: first of all, we are talking about what a firm has offered for sale in the market. So here the word is offered for sale, not necessarily that the firm has to be succeed in the selling. So that is the first point to be identified, because there are certain goods always which may not get sold, and for practical purposes we call them stocks. If you go to a supermarket, there will be abundant of stocks available in the racks. You see all of them. Is that not supply? That is also supply. But are they sold already? No. If they are sold, they will not be in the racks of supermarket. They would have been in the houses of consumers. So they are not yet sold, but they are offered for sale. So when they are offered for sale, that is enough to constitute supply. Not necessary that the supplier should be succeeding in selling of those goods and services. That is one of the important points to be identified. But when it comes to consumer, it is not just ability to consume, it is not just willingness to consume, it is not just his wish to consume. All these things only will not matter. He has to really buy it. Then only it constitutes demand. But whereas when it comes to supply, the supplier need not really sell it. Whatever the quantity of goods and services which are offered for sale in the market. For services, it is a little different point, because for services, there will not be any stocks. So let us stick our discussion to goods so that it will be easier to understand the concept. So, whatever the goods are offered for sale, they constitute supply. And all the goods which are offered not necessarily to be sold in order to call them the supply. So the point is, supply includes stocks. So for a particular period of time, whatever the stocks which are remaining to be sold, yet to be sold, those also will be part of supply for that particular period of time, naturally at that particular place, whichever we are referring to. So that is the first important point to be noted. Offer for sale is important, sale is not important. And the second one is already what we know. Just like demand, supply is also a flow concept. Flow concept means it has to be expressed always like so much, as we discussed just now as an example, 10,000 tons. Per what? Per what? Is it per day, or is it per week, or is it per year? It has to be expressed for a particular period of time. So that is why we can call supply as a flow concept, not a stock concept. It is a flow concept. It is not at a particular point of time, it is for a period of time. So it is not a point concept, it is a flow concept, we can say. Now let us understand what are the determinants of supply. Determinants means which factors will influence the supply. Of course, there will be a lot of factors which will influence the supply. But just like in demand, in the case of demand, even in the case of supply also, price is definitely an important consideration in determining the willingness and desire to part with commodities. To part with commodities means the sellers want to sell their commodities to others. For that purpose, price definitely is a very important factor, no doubt about it. However, there will be a lot of other factors also which will determine the supply of a product or service. What are those factors? Let us understand one by one. And as usual, the first and foremost determinant of supply will be the price of the commodity itself. Just like in the case of demand, price is definitely one of the most important considerations in determining the supply also. But how this relationship is there? Is it also just like demand? Definitely not. It will be actually opposite. Because in case of demand, when the prices of the goods increase, then the quantity demanded will decrease. That's what happens in the case of demand, which we know that. But here it will be opposite. When the prices of the goods increase, the supply for those commodities will also increase, and vice versa. So what can we say here? Other things being equal, ceteris paribus, higher the relative price of a good, whenever the relative price of a good is higher, then the the supply of that commodity also will be greater. So naturally, when the price of a commodity is higher, the quantity supplied of that commodity will be also greater. In other words, how these two are related, these two, both price and supply, or we can call that as quantity supplied. So how these two are related? These two are directly related. Whereas in the case of demand, those two are inversely related. Now these are directly related. So price of a commodity, as it increases, the quantity supplied also increases. The quantity supplied also increases. Both are in the same direction. So what happens if the price of the commodity decreases? Naturally, because the relationship is direct relationship, quantity supplied also will decrease. That is going to decrease because these two are directly related with each other but not inversely related. That is the difference. First of all, we should identify. When it comes to demand, it was a different relationship. When it comes to supply, it is a different relationship. Price and quantity demanded were inversely related. Price and quantity supplied are directly related. That is the first and foremost relationship we should understand, and first and foremost influencer of supply will naturally be the price of the commodity itself. That is a fact. That is what is law of supply also, which we will discuss in elaboration in the coming classes. But why this happens? Why the quantity supplied will be more at higher prices? Once again, common sense. When if we understand the prices of the commodities are more, and always we have to keep this in mind, ceteris paribus means all other things being equal, including cost of the manufacturing is also equal. It is not changing. All other things being equal, they are not anything changing. So cost of the commodity is same. When the cost of the commodities are same, but prices are increasing, naturally what happens? The profits will also increase. When the price is increasing, profits are also increasing, then any supplier would like to, we are not telling that he will be able to sell, but he will definitely would like to sell as many goods as possible. So when there is a price increase, since cost being the same, profits will definitely rise, and that will motivate the suppliers to supply more and more quantities into the market. That is why when the price is high, quantity supplied will be high, and the same logic can be applied opposite also. When other things being equal, prices are low, there is no reasonable prices available in the market, then the suppliers would not like to supply. They might cut down their production, they might not utilize their capacities. So they will not be willing to supply more, they will be willing to supply less and less because their profits are not very attractive. So general phenomena this is, whenever the prices of the commodities are on the rise, quantity supplied will be also on the rise. Whenever the prices of the commodities are down, quantity supplied also will go down along with that. So that is why these two are directly related with each other. But now naturally a question comes, so how can the suppliers react to these price changes so quickly? First of all, nobody is telling that the change in the supply or change in the quantity supplied is going to happen immediately. Whatever we are talking about here, whether it is price of the commodity or any other factor which influences the supply, the influence is going to definitely take lot of time. How much time it takes? That depends on the business. For a normal roadside idli vendor, he might change his quantity supplied in a day. For him, it's not a big deal. But for a aircraft manufacturer like Boeing or Airbus, for them, in order to change their supply, that they may take years together. So how quickly the suppliers will be reacting to the influencers of supply is always a questionable thing, and it is always not same for all types of products. So according to the technology, according to the size of the firm, according to how quickly they can adapt to the situations, they will change. So we don't need to bother about that, is what I meant to say. We don't need to bother about how quickly they are changing the supply or how quickly they are not able to change the supply. That is only one of the very practical factors. But what we are testing here is theoretically, when the price of the commodities rise, quantity supplied over a period of time, will it increase or not? Definitely yes. When the prices of the commodities are down, will the quantity supplied will decrease or not? Definitely yes. Why? Because the suppliers would definitely, anybody would like to have more profits. And when the prices are high, since we are assuming all other things being equal, the profits will also be high. And when the prices are low, once again, since ceteris paribus, profits will go down, which will demotivate the suppliers to supply more quantities of commodities in the market. So that is the basic logic behind how the price of the commodities and the quantity supplied will have a direct relationship. And we can understand this from a practical perspective also with some examples, particularly taking agricultural examples. Let us say the prices of certain agricultural products, so say something like soya or something like that, if that is very high, or prices of certain agricultural products which may suddenly have some kind of price rise in their market prices, we can say. Example I'm telling. So something like soya or something like cotton suddenly has a higher price, or something like tobacco has suddenly higher price. Like this, we keep on hearing to this type of news that certain agricultural produce has a higher price. So what normally happens? The farmers are not going to cut the existing farm and shift it to that product immediately. No. Whatever they already have, they will continue with that. After the harvesting, next season, they will shift their production from whatever they're already producing. Let us say some farmer is producing rice already. Maybe if he thinks that the soya can give him a better profits, so naturally for the next crop, he will shift his production. Agriculture is also a production, from rice to soya. Or if the contrary, reverse is happening, then he will shift opposite way. So depending upon the market prices of the products, it is common that the suppliers, the manufacturers, the producers, whoever we call them, they will change the production also, and accordingly naturally the quantity supplied also will change. So this is one of the live examples that we see normally in the TV channels also. We hear that agricultural experts, sometimes even the chief minister also tells, this year you don't cultivate this crop, you better cultivate another crop because the price is good. Like that, there will be advice coming from different experts. Irrespective of that, when the suppliers really determine that they have to shift from one product to another product, they will do that. But what will be the motivating factor behind that is the point. The big motivating factor behind that will definitely be the price of the commodity. So price of the commodity is the foremost important factor that influences the supply, and this happens with many types of production process. But once again, it is all not that easy to quickly change. In our example, shifting from one crop to another crop may take 6 months time, but for another business it may take years of time. That's okay, but definitely the tendency holds good. How long it takes, how short it takes, that can be different from product to product, supplier to supplier, country to country, place to place, technology to technology. Those things are all dependent on many factors. We don't have to go into that. All that we should focus on is whether this tendency will be there in the suppliers or not. Answer is yes. Prices of the goods will have an influence on supply or not. Answer is yes. How they are related? They are directly related. That's all. That is the first determinant of supply, we can say. Then the second determinant is the prices of related goods. Related goods. So here, don't try to use the same type of thought process or the terminology like we used in the demand theory. substitutes, complementaries. We don't need that, irrespective of whatever they are. So here we don't need to really look at the nature of the related good, any related good, any other good. Prices of the other goods rise, then they become relatively more profitable. The same example holds good for this also, because here let us say some other good related, not necessarily rice and soya are related, but both are cultivated in the same farm, no? In our example, not really. So when soya becomes more profitable, when the prices of related goods, other goods, let us say, better than using the word related goods, we can say other goods. What are those goods maybe, whether they are related or unrelated, doesn't matter. But if the manufacturing of those goods, other goods is more profitable, if the prices of the other goods increases, then what happens to the supply of the original commodity? So in our same example, if you consider this rice and soya example, in that, imagine if the price of the soya is increasing, if the price of the soya is increasing, what will happen? Naturally, people will shift from cultivation of rice to cultivation of soya. So naturally, along with that, what is happening? The supply of rice is decreasing. In other words, how these two are related now? Inversely related. So the price of the commodity and quantity supplied are directly related. That's what is here, what we can understand. These two are directly related. Whereas price of the related commodities and supply of the original commodity are inversely related. That is what we can conclude from this example. That is how prices of related goods will have an influence definitely on the supply of the original commodity. That's what is given. For example, let us say the price of rice, price of Y rises, then the quantity supplied of X will fall naturally. Why? Because people will shift from production of X to production of Y, because Y is now more profitable. That's what happens in case the prices of related goods are high. Same logic is applied here also. For example, if the price of the wheat rises, the farmers may shift their land to wheat, and they may not produce corn or soya beans like that, for example. So they may shift from one to another according to the prices of those commodities. So please don't tell me just now you said soya beans people will cultivate more. That was a different example. This is a different example. In our example, what we took two commodities, one is rice, one is soya beans. Soya price increased. People shifted from cultivation of rice to cultivation of soya. That means the supply of rice has decreased. That was our example. This example is different. In this example, what is there? People are already manufacturing or cultivating something like corn or soya beans. Now the price of the wheat has increased. Now what they will do? They will stop cultivation or they will reduce. Not that everybody will stop. On an overall basis, in the market as a whole, definitely the cultivation of corn and soybeans will reduce and the cultivation of wheat will increase, which means the supply of wheat will increase, the supply of corn and soybeans will decrease. So that's what happens in case of there is a change in the prices of related goods or other goods, we can say. Again, can we say that all are related? We cannot say that, not necessarily all the times. Now you can take a live example that is happening even during the corona times. For example, if you take any liquor manufacturer, particularly not in India but in other countries, liquor manufacturers who used to manufacture alcohol for consumption as liquor, most of them have shifted to manufacturing hand sanitizers, etc. And that was not very difficult for them. They could shift very relatively easily. Why? Because first and foremost thing is the prices of the hand sanitizers are increasing because of their huge demand naturally, because of lot of people in the world would like to use hand sanitizers now. So because of which relative prices, again you cannot say liquor is expensive than sanitizer now, not in that sense. Relative prices, producer will always look at what is my cost and what is the relative price. If I manufacture some product at 10 rupees cost, and if I can sell it at 50 rupees, I am making 40 rupees profit. That's a huge percentage of profit for me. On the other side, if I am manufacturing something else for 100 rupees, but I am able to sell it at only 120 rupees. If you look at generally 120 versus 50, looks like 120 is better. But it is not what suppliers or manufacturers or businessmen will look at. They look at relative prices, of course also considering their own costs. So when it becomes better to manufacture sanitizers than liquor for human consumption, they shift there. Why they did that? Because that was having better prices relatively compared to the liquor consumption. So that is how, even in many cases, wherever there is a possibility of shifting the production or shifting the manufacturing or cultivation from one product to another product, this relationship will definitely hold good. And how that relationship will come into existence? Whenever the prices of related goods or other goods will increase, then the supply for original commodity will decrease. That is about influence of prices of related goods on the supply of original goods. Then what about reverse? When the prices of other goods decreases, what happens? Naturally reverse happens. When the prices of other goods decrease, relatively original commodity looks more attractive. Same, no? Imagine in our same example, let us say prices of soya are coming down. That means relatively the price of rice is high. Then people will shift from soya to rice. So then naturally what happens? The supply for rice will increase and supply for soya will decrease. So according to the prices of the related commodities, the supply of the original commodities will also be influenced. But that influence is a inverse relationship that you should identify here. It is not a direct relationship. So the price of the goods and quantity supplied are directly related with each other. Prices of the other goods and supply of the original commodity are inversely related with each other. That's what we can conclude from these two discussions. Now, coming to another factor, that is factors of production, costs, prices or costs of the factors of production. There are many factors of production. We can call them land, labor, capital, organization, something like that. Or in the modern days, we are even calling that as different M's. We can sometimes call that as 5 M's. That is a popular distinction or popular classification, we can say. 5 M's. Like what? Men, machinery, materials, money, and methods. All of them are factors of production. Our old classical classification anyway is there, that is land, labor, capital, and organization. Like this, many factors of production will be involved in manufacturing something or producing something, and their prices also will have an influence on the supply or not. Definitely yes. Imagine if the prices of the land are so increasing, that means the manufacturing becomes very costly. When it becomes very costly, it becomes least profitable. That means less people will be interested in entering into that business, or existing people also might not be able to maintain those businesses and they may reduce their supply. So all these factors of production, whether it is land, you take labor becoming expensive, definitely is going to hamper the supply negatively. Same way, capital is becoming expensive. Capital becoming expensive means what? Interest rates are rising. Interest rates are indicators, or we can say that is the price of capital. What is the price of land? Whatever you purchase for it, or whatever you pay rent for it, that is the price of the land. You can call it as rent. That is the price of land. What is the price for labor? That is wages. Whatever the amount of salaries we pay to the workers, that is wages. That's what you pay for labor. But what is the price of capital? What is the price that you pay for money? That is interest. So if the interest rates are high, that means capital is becoming more and more costly. Of course, organization is about people and management. So you can consider that as again salaries paid to top management who are administering the organization. But irrespective of whichever factor of production is becoming more costly, any factor of production, their prices, if they are increasing, we are talking about the prices of factors of production. If the prices of the factors of production are increasing, naturally the supply will decrease because that will be acting like a negative force on the supply. Simple. That's what happens. And why it acts like a negative force on the supply? Because when the price of the factors of production increases, the cost of production is increasing, which means the profits will decrease. Naturally, nobody will be motivated to do that activity for a lesser profit. So that is why we can say cost of production is definitely a significant factor that will affect the supply also. Then how it will affect? Inverse relationship once again. A rise in the price of a particular factor of production will cause increase in the cost of making, and naturally that will reduce the supply. For example, just to understand this, say there was a rise in the cost of land, then what happens? Because of that, the cost of producing wheat is there, definitely affected by the rise in the cost of the land. So when the cost of the land rises, the wheat production may be negatively affected because there is an inverse relationship between these two. But will it affect same way for all industries? Not necessarily. It may have a very small effect on the cost of producing automobiles because mostly in the automobiles, the materials and technology costs more than the land. So which factor of production is more important for an organization? Once again, that depends upon the organization. Certain organizations are labor intensive. If they are labor intensive, then prices of labor, that is wage rates, will have a big influence on them. Interest rates may not have a big influence on them. Imagine some organization is there where there is no debt at all and their capital is also very low. It is mostly labor intensive organization. Then, for example, software industries, mostly labor intensive, those are all. Biggest cost for a software company will be what? Wages they pay to their workers. Okay, we call them software engineers. So should we call them salaries? We can call them for accounts purposes. But practically there is no difference between wages and salaries. Ultimately it is a manpower, human beings to whom the company pays. So for a software company, if the wage rates of the software engineers is increasing, that becomes less and less profitable. And naturally the supply of services related to that industry will reduce. Like that, certain industries may be capital intensive, certain industries may be labor intensive, certain sectors like agriculture may be heavily depending upon the land, certain sectors very rarely though might be depending mostly on the organizational skills, which is a rare scenario because organization is common for any organization and management is common for any organization. So that's why. So that is not going to be a big one. It will be a factor, but a very small factor. Major factors, majorly in any economy, the factors of production's cost will be determined by these three things. One is what is the cost of land, what is the cost of labor, and what is the cost of capital. That's what is generally heard also. You might have heard for just when you listen to some of the news, particularly when finance minister level people talk about labor reforms, they say land reforms, and RBI governor comes and says interest rates are reduced. This all happened in the past, say 1.5, 2 months. And why they are talking about it? Why land reforms they want? Why labor reforms they want to do? Or why RBI has reduced interest rates? Because they know that existing factors of production are costly relatively, so the suppliers may not be really willing to do because they also don't smell any profit here. Times are bad. So how to somehow make an activity happen? At least give some benefit to suppliers by giving them a cheaper land or by making available little bit of cheaper labor and making them available cheaper capital at low interest rates. That's what a macroeconomic level decision will have an impact on the prices of factors of production. But once again, can any one person sit and determine all these things? Not possible. Only for interest rates, we can say Reserve Bank of India is there to monitor it. But all the remaining things are very, very huge variables. We cannot actually identify how these dynamics of those prices will keep on changing. But one thing what we can identify definitely is their costs. The costs of the factors of production, prices of the factors of production definitely will have a negative impact on the supply. In other words, inverse relationship once again. As the prices of the factors of production increase, supply will decrease naturally. And vice versa. As the prices of the cost of production decrease, supply will increase. Why so many American software companies in the past 25-30 years have come to India? What was their attraction? Because the labor is cheap. Because the software engineers in India are relatively cheaper when compared to American market or European market. So when such a huge incentive is there for them, where they can get cheaper labor, where the wages are low, once again relatively, when compared with their own wages in their own countries, then naturally they will shift to a country where the labor is cheaper. It was India when it comes to that sector, particularly the software and information technology sector. So lot of people have come, lot of companies have come, it has grown. Earlier almost, not even long back, even 10-15 years back, there used to be only one building in Madhapur that was just the cyber towers, what we call now, used to be called high-tech city. Now if you look at that area, there are so many buildings, so many companies have come, so much of investment has been made and supply increased, right? When that all happening is means what? Software services is also one of the products. Whether the supply of that has increased or not? Definitely yes. And how did that happen? For the simple reason, in that case, the land was available relatively cheaper for them because government was giving them free or very cheap rates. Labor was available cheaper for them. Capital they already had, and these are not very capital intensive industries. Service industries are not very capital intensive industries. They are mostly labor oriented industries. So for them, it was a good proposition to come to India and start the companies here. That's what they did. So that is how any example, any case of any production definitely will be dependent upon their factors, and factors of production's cost will definitely have an influence on the supply in an inverse manner. In other words, cost of the factors of production increases, supply decreases. Everything relationship you should know. Price of the good increases, quantity supplied also increases. And I'm using the word quantity supplied consciously, and you know the reason why. We use the word quantity demanded, quantity supplied when we talk about their relationship with which factor? Only price. We use the word supply or demand when we use the relationship of any other determinant on the demand or supply. Actually, there is no difference. Both are quantities only, but words are used in different context. So instead of using the word supply, when we talk about price of a commodity and its relationship with supply, we use the word quantity supplied. So what are related here? Price of a commodity and quantity supplied are related. Price of the commodity increases, quantity supplied also increases, and vice versa. Then how about the prices of other goods? Prices of other goods increase, supply of the original commodity decreases. That means it is a inverse relationship once again. What about the prices of factors of production? How they will influence on supply? When the prices of the factors of production increase, supply will decrease. That is the relationship. Now, like this, state of technology also will have an influence on supply. Definitely yes. If the technology is improving, innovations are happening, inventions are happening, then definitely that will lead to manufacturing more and more quantity of goods also, and not only more and more quantity, even better goods also can be produced with better technology. And you can relate it to any practical example that we would have seen in our own small life, like mobile phones. Mobile phones earlier, say 10 years back, there were mobile phones 10 years back also, but the quantity of supply of mobile phones was not as much as it is now. That much of production was not there. Why it has increased? How it has increased? Because the technology has improved. Because the technological innovations have improved in such a way that those are all increasing the quantity of goods which are supplied. So ultimately, when there is a better technology, that will increase the quantity supplied. Again, don't go with this quantity supplied and supply discussion once again. I'm telling you once for all, doesn't matter. But usually in the exam questions, when they use the word quantity supplied, they are referring to relationship between price and supply. When they are using the word supply, they are talking about any factor other than price. That is more applicable for demand for sure. We can continue to apply that for supply also. If they are not applying, we should not get unnecessarily confused because of that. Let them not apply. But we should know very clearly, there is no difference between them. Only the words which are used in different contexts. So here, better technology increases the supply. Naturally, bad technologies decreases the supply. As simple as that. And sometimes certain products and services will be displaced also. Displaced in the sense they become obsolete, they become waste. And when new technology comes, the old products become obsolete. Their supply will naturally reduce. Now, can you see any audio CD shops? Earlier there used to be a lot of them. Video CD shops which sell the compact discs and DVDs of movies. They used to be very popular. Of course, prior to that there were VCPs and VCRs. Video cassettes used to be there. Audio cassettes used to be there. I'm not sure. You are aware of audio cassettes in this generation. But audio cassettes was itself a very innovative thing those days. So, how the technology has changed so quickly from radio. Radio means we don't have a choice. Whatever they play, we have to listen to that song. From radio, move it to the tape recorder, where you can have a cassette. Then move it to a smaller version called Walkman. Then move it to Discman and audio CDs. Then video CDs are there. Then DVDs are there. Blu-ray discs are there. What happened to all of them? Are they available now? Yes, they may be available. Some people might be still purchasing. I know people who still listen to audio cassettes. They might like it. That's the exception. But normally, are they available? Is their supply high? Definitely not. They are almost displaced. So certain products, with the advent of technology, they will get displaced, and certain products will have more and more quantities supplied into the market. That depends upon all technology. So technology will have a huge influence on the supply. And not only that, if there is a spare production capacity, how to use that spare production capacity also will be a decision that the organizations will make. And if they can do the factor substitution, where the cost of such substitution is relatively cheaper, then they will increase the supply of other commodities also. Just like we can use the same example of liquor manufacturers manufacturing sanitizers. Imagine already they are using only 60% of their capacity to manufacture alcohol, that is liquor. Remaining 40% is still spare capacity. Now, this is the right time, good time for them to use that spare capacity to manufacture sanitizers, so that they use the full capacity and they can get good profits in that. But point is how quickly they can substitute the factors. Not always possible. If possible, if the technology supports that, then definitely such kind of substitution happens. And what is the cost of substitution also will determine that. Cost of substitution means how cheaply we can convert from one kind of technology to another kind of technology. It is not that easy. We can say that they are doing, but how they are able to do? They are able to do because of having a better technology with them, and they are able to substitute some of the factors with other factors, so that they have managed to change their production strategy from only manufacturing alcohol for human consumption to hand sanitizers. And not only that, by the way, a lot of garment companies now, including like you would say the apparel companies like Wildcraft, they are making masks now. Nobody is buying bags and all. Nobody is going to colleges or schools. So bag market is gone. So with the same technology, they are not going to import new machinery to manufacture masks. If they know how to manufacture bags, they can definitely use the same technology to manufacture masks also. They are doing that. They are substituting one product with another product. Like that, automobile manufacturers are manufacturing ventilators. In India, we heard Mahindra and Mahindra was making ventilators. All these years, it never made ventilators. Suddenly, how can they make ventilators? Because technology supports them. In US, Ford, General Motors, a lot of big companies are making ventilators. So how could they do that? All of them. Because now in the current time they have spare production capacity. Original product, whatever they were manufacturing, there is no need of any supply for that because nobody is asking that. There is a lot of spare production capacity and that is now being substituted with some more products. And if that substitution is profitable, they will definitely do that. If that substitution is not profitable, they will not do that. So these all factors will also influence the supply. How the state of technology can influence the supply or how it can smoothen the shift in the product choices, that will also have a huge impact on supply. And spare production capacity always will have an influence on supply. That will be having influence on the kind of products that they design also, enter into the markets also. That will have an impact automatically. So imagine like for example, all these so-called energy drink powders like Horlicks, Bournvita, Boost and all. They are already having manufacturing of these powders, whatever they are. But if they have spare production capacity, they can manufacture these things. In that spare production capacity, they can manufacture biscuits also. Maybe they can use the almost the dust that is coming out of the manufacture of this, and they can use the same thing with some more little bit of ingredients added. They can manufacture biscuits. That is why we see Bournvita biscuits, Boost biscuits, Horlicks biscuits were also there. Why would they do that? They do that generally when there is a spare production capacity. Of course, branding is a separate story. But when the spare production capacity is there, they can substitute one manufacturing with another manufacturing if the technology supports. If the technology does not support, it is all not possible. That is why how the technology and the supply are related directly or inversely. Definitely directly related, means the state of technology is better, supply will also be better. That is the relationship between state of technology and supply. That is another determinant of supply, we can say. Now coming to the next point, that is government policy. So government policy is a big discussion. That itself is a huge discussion. Of course, we will discuss that in macroeconomics. That is called economics for finance in group 2 of CA intermediate. There is almost a full chapter for that. We don't need to go into the details of that. But definitely, now what all we need to know is, will government policy also have an impact on supply? Definitely yes. That is what we should know. Question is how? Here let us look at in two angles. One is taxes, one is subsidies. Again, let us not go into too much details of public policy, government policy, fiscal policy and all. Those are all not required at this level. Government has two things. One, it can give some subsidies to the manufacturers or suppliers, or it can tax them. Naturally, whatever government gives as subsidies, that is benefit for the market, benefit for the suppliers, and whatever government taxes, whatever the name it may be, say for example GST, most popularly, that is a cost for the supplier. When the taxes increase, cost of production also increases. And when the market price increases along with the cost of production, then the supplier has no problem. But it is not easy to increase the prices in the market just like that. So what happens? When the taxes increase, in general, at least immediately for some time, the suppliers will have to bear the burden of that additional taxes, particularly indirect taxes. Here examples of excise duty, sales tax, these are all given. Import duties are also called customs duties. But on a broader basis, you can just understand one of the major taxes that will have an impact on the supply or for that matter on the production cost is GST. So, if GST rates are increased, it will have a negative impact on the supply. As simple as that. If the GST rates are more, let us say on the luxury hotels or on the restaurants, then a lot of restaurant owners might close down. That will reduce the supply. So indirect taxes like excise duty, sales tax, GST, or import duties like customs duties, they will have a negative impact on the supply. So if the taxes rise, then supply will go down. So how taxes will have an impact? So taxes will have an impact like this. See, when the taxes rise, supply will go down, and vice versa. When the taxes are less, supply will go up, like that. So these are inversely related. What about subsidies? Subsidies are what? That is the government's incentive to the suppliers. Naturally, when the subsidies are more, supply will be more in that particular sector. You can take the example of electric vehicles in India. Electric vehicles get subsidies. So that is an incentive, that is a motivation for many people to enter into that business. Same way, solar energy, same way, wind energy. These are all various aspects where the government gives subsidies. So the supply of those commodities, those goods will be more because of that. So when subsidies are more, supply will be more. When taxes are more, supply will be less. Once again, are we telling how the government should take its policies? That is none of our business. That government will decide it. We will only know what its policy is. Our point here is what is the impact of government policy on the supply. That's all. Impact of taxes on the supply. What is the impact? Negative impact. Impact of subsidies on the supply. What is impact? Positive impact. They have direct relationship. That is enough to understand when we talk about government policy. But are these the only two things? Taxes and subsidies? Definitely not. There are so many things, like government can impose import quotas, it can create a rationing of the input supply. Like that, many restrictions the government will put. That's what popularly sometimes called as ease of doing the business. If the government is not creating a conducive environment for the businesses to run, then supply will naturally reduce. Many existing people will go out of the market. New people will not come into the market. For supply side, we are talking once again. People means not customers here, suppliers. So because of which, definitely the supply will be negatively affected. So government policy for sure is a very important influencer on the supply. That is the fifth point we can say as a determinant of supply. Then another determinant, of course it is a natural determinant, definitely yes. Nature of the competition and size of the industry. Imagine if the competition nature is perfect competition or more competition is there in the market. In other words, competitive conditions. In the competitive conditions, the supply will be more. Why is that? Once again, when in the competitive conditions, more suppliers are there. They all compete with each other so much. Usually it so happens that they want to sell more than others. So they will be very aggressive in selling, and they would tend to supply more and more to the market so that they can grab the highest market share. Everybody wants that. Who wins it is a different story. But in the competitive conditions, everybody would like to definitely have a bigger market share, and accordingly they increase their supply also. So simply speaking, under competitive conditions, the supply will be more than under monopolized conditions. Under monopolized conditions, the supply may not be more, it may be relatively lesser. We cannot see the monopolized conditions quite often, but sometimes we can understand them with occasional incidents at least. Say for example, not now, say around 5 years back or 6 years back, when Apple used to introduce a new phone or a new model of iPhone or iPod or iPad, there used to be queues. There used to be queues in front of the Apple store. Why people were queuing? Would the stock be over very quickly so that they will be missing to buy it? They can buy tomorrow also. It's not like a movie. I like a hero, I want to watch him on the first day. That's a different story. This is after all a product. You buy today, you buy tomorrow. But why you have to be so desperate to buy that product on the first day itself, before even it is launched? At least in India it's okay. In some of the old videos in China, people are like mad. thousands of people are in the queues to purchase Apple phones. Apple has enjoyed that monopolized conditions for certain period of time at least, if not continuously. So what happens? What they will do? They will do a little lesser supply to the market than the market can absorb. So if the demand is for, let us say, 10,000 Apple phones in Hyderabad, Apple will not supply 10,000 phones. It will supply only 5,000, 6,000 phones, and it will see whether the people are really gearing up to buy it or not. So when the supply is less, then only people will be more desperate to buy it, and then the brand image will increase. So supply in monopolized conditions is deliberately reduced, not that they cannot supply. They would have had sufficient capacity to supply to the entire world, but that is a deliberate market strategy they apply, because of which they will reduce the supply than what they could have supplied. That's the natural phenomena. Will it always happen? Can it happen? No, it will not always happen. That facility and that much of I would say privilege also will not be there for many manufacturers. Rarely it happens. Even if it happens also, it happens for a particular small period of time. Afterwards, it is same. Once again, market will rule. Nobody can have a monopoly for a longer period of time. So automatically, there will not be such monopoly enjoyed in future also. But what we have to understand here is, under competitive conditions, because there are many people on the supply side, supply will be more. Under monopolized conditions, because there are less people, or in fact one person only who is supplying, he will determine the supply. What he will try to do? He will try to create an artificial demand, he will try to curb the supply so that he can sell the same product at higher prices. If all the 10,000 phones are supplied to Hyderabad, if at all Hyderabad is ready to buy all the 10,000 Apple phones, then next model, why would people be really interested to buy at a higher price? They will not be. Their image in their brand image in their brains will go down. So rather, they will create an artificial demand. They will create an artificial scarcity. The suppliers will do that. And they will supply less than what the market might really absorb. So that is a common phenomenon, and that is the reason why we can say under competitive conditions the supply will be more, under monopolized conditions the supply will be relatively lesser. That's what also is a general phenomena. Once again, as I said, monopolized conditions may not exist longer. We cannot see them every day. That is not appropriate also. Normally whatever we see is market. Normally whatever we see is competitive only. Exceptions are always there. Only those exceptions we can use as examples for understanding what does monopolized conditions mean, but not that. We can apply it to every case. Wherever there is queue, is it monopoly? We cannot say that. Even in temples also there is queue, even railway stations also there is queue. So that is not the point. The queue in front of Apple store has a different reason. The queue in front of a cinema theater on the first day of a release of a big film or a big hero's film has a different reason. The queue in front in a temple has a different reason. The queue in front of ration shop has a different reason. We cannot say wherever there is queue there is monopoly. That is not the kind of conclusions we should draw. We should only understand what is the impact of these factors on the supply, first point. For understanding, we just have an example of competitive conditions. Competitive conditions need not have an example. Whatever daily we see is competitive only. Exceptionally rare cases, there will be monopolized conditions where the suppliers will intentionally, deliberately reduce the supply. That's what we should understand. And that is the reason supply will be relatively lesser in monopolized conditions. That's it. And supply curve and all, we don't need to look at it now. We'll come to that anyway. And not only that, when there is an entry of new firms, naturally, the supply will be more. Whether it is domestic or foreign, the supply will be more. So when there is more number of new organizations, the supply will be more. For this particular example, we can take motor vehicles in India, particularly two-wheelers. Even in my childhood, almost there used to be only two major brands. I heard that prior to that there used to be only one, Bajaj. Later on, at least in my childhood, we know that there was something called Vespa, what is now called Vespa. It used to be called LML Vespa. These are the only two scooter manufacturers. Bikes and all are very rare, very rare. And Kinetic Honda used to be there. That's it. Not many automobile manufacturers were there. Though there were names, but they are not into all types of segments. But after a period of time when the number of suppliers has increased, new firms have entered. Yamaha has come, Suzuki has come directly, Honda has come directly. Then Hero anyway was there. That was called Hero Honda for some time. Later now there are two different firms. And Bajaj anyway is there. Vespa has come again. TVS has come. Mahindra also is into two-wheelers manufacturing. Like this, there are plenty of firms that manufacture two-wheelers now. And naturally the supply will be more. That is why the number of vehicles that are sold, let us say 10-15 years back, was much lesser. Now it will be more. Now not in the corona times. Normally. So entry of new firms definitely increases the supply. Increasing the supply means shift of the supply curve. That's okay. How that shift of supply curve happens and all, we'll come to that later. Like this, there are many factors that will influence the supply. So we have to understand each of them because each of them can be a bit. Each of them can be a question. Price of the commodity and quantity supplied directly related. Price of the other goods, quantity supplied or supply of the original commodity inversely related. Prices of factors of production and supply inversely related. State of technology and supply directly related, but better to call it as positively related. Taxes and supply negatively related. And subsidies and supply positively related. Nature of competition. Competitive markets, better, more the competition, better the supply. Less the competition, less the supply. Like that. More the number of firms, more the supply. Less the number of firms, less the supply. Like this, many factors will have their own influence on the supply. In addition to this, so many factors will definitely be there. We don't have to go through all of them. Once again, the government policies, like government's industrial policies, foreign policies, etc. And what are the goals of the firm itself? Certain firms may not really want to increase the supply. They just supply only a standard quantity and keep quiet. That is their style. So not necessarily that according to the market they change their supply. So they will have their own goals. So that will have an influence. Infrastructure facilities are better. Definitely that will have a positive influence on the supply. Natural factors. Good weather, positive on supply. Bad weather, negative on supply. Floods, negative on supply. Earthquakes, negative on supply. Like war, labor strikes, communal rights, negative on supply. Like this, for many of these factors, definitely positive or negative, we can understand whether they will have a positive impact on the supply or negative impact on the supply. But once again, supply of what? That also will be definitely mattering. Let us say, just now, having a big disaster like coronavirus, it is definitely a negative impact on the supply. No doubt about it. Overall supply is almost at all-time low, we can say, in the country and in the world also. But can we say, is it true for all products? Definitely not. Sanitizer supply has increased tremendously. Mask supply has increased tremendously. Ventilators production and supply has increased tremendously. Like this, hand wash, other products like that. Their manufacturing has increased and supply has increased. So we cannot say whenever something bad happens, always entire supply will go down. Yes, overall amounts wise, if you take, overall supply will definitely go down. But there will be always exceptions in any case. That is the point we just need to know. Not that what are the exceptions in every case. There will be exceptions. In a particular scenario, normally how the supply behaves, we should know that. Exceptions will be there. That also we should know that. If there is an exceptional condition that is given in the question, we should be able to identify that it is an exception. Not that what are all the list of exceptions I will by heart. It will not happen like that. So, how these will have impact on the supply, we should have an idea about it. So, these are all various factors which will have impact on the supply. So, we can call them as determinants of supply. With that, we will conclude today's discussion. And in the next session, we will continue with the law of supply and also understand the difference between the movements on the supply curve and shift of the supply curve. More or less the same as what already we discussed in demand. But determinants of supply and determinants of demand are not same if you observe, except that price is one of the only major factors. Determinants of demand are completely different in dimension. Determinants of supply are completely also different in their own dimension. And once again, demand being buy side, supply being sell side, need not be influenced by always the same factors. Even if it is influenced by the same factor like price, it will not be influenced in the same direction. It will be influenced in the opposite direction. So that is what we should understand from the theory or concept of supply, we can say. The actual law of supply and supply schedule and supply curve, graph, how they will look like, all these aspects we'll discuss in the next session. Till that time, take care, bye bye, good night.